etc. So we'll take that into account, folks. All right. So I prepared some slides more just to keep me on track and keep me focused than anything else. Otherwise, I will drift. And so let's just kick this off. Hang on a second. There we go. All right. So purpose. We've done that poll. So here's what we're going to do with this. I'm going to take 3 specific scenarios that most people use video, use some form of online streaming in. One is webinars. You're doing something like this and you want some tips and techniques, whether that's lighting, audio, content, delivery, etc. Second one I have is studio. That's more the high-end stuff, the stuff Jim Marshall does so well. That's where he's standing on camera, pay somebody to come in, stick up some lights, high-end audio, well scripted out, very formal rather than the informal nature of webinars, which most people would use for kind of training and coaching. So there's a very different dynamic to that, and I'm going to spend some time covering that as well. And then the third area I want to touch on are more casual video that's using your phone, for example, and that's there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that it's very convenient. Another reason as well is from a Generation Z perspective. It seems to be the kind of the go-to method. So actually, Cody Isabel put up something the other day, and it was very ad hoc. Production values, you know, the other end of the scale to the studio type video. However, a lot of people respond to that very favorably. There's another reason for those type of videos as well, is that studies show that with a high-end studio type video, people see you as quite credible. But with the more run and gun type video, people see you as more trustworthy. So there's a place for those. So we'll also look at some tips and techniques in that context. And again, for each one of these 3 areas, I'm going to explore 4 subtopics. And you'll see them there around that square. The audio, lighting, content, and then delivery. And we're going to do it in that order. So audio, and the reason why audio is number 1, believe it or not, it's more important than video. People will forgive low-end quality video far faster than they'll forgive poor audio. So we're going to look at various different options for audio, for lighting, and then look at, and again, I want people, when we come to content as well, I want people to share I'll share with my workflow, but also then others what you're doing if you've got a different workflow from mine in terms of coming up with ideas, etc., and then some techniques and tips and tricks, that sort of thing. I'd like the format for this to be very informal. This is not me say I don't have a, other than what you're seeing right now, here's what you must do, here's best practice. I want to keep it interactive as possible, in that I'll use this structure to explore these different areas. If you have questions as we go along, please jump in with those questions and I'll try to address them. That said, there's certain areas that will probably or may require a more detailed answer than we have time for in a 1-hour webinar, in which case I'll either do a separate video on that and share it with people, or we can just do, we can stay on. I've got an hour in the diary for this. However, I'm not running anywhere. So if there's something we need to take offline, it's not offline, it'll be online, but we'll do it when the formal part of this session is over. So that's the 3 areas there. Time, it's running for an hour, but I'm not running anywhere after that. If we want to continue on specific topics, jump in with any questions you have. And then the third area is follow-up support. There may be areas we get into that are technical in nature. For example, what's the best settings to use on a camera? Well, I'm not going to get stuck in the weeds in this particular session, but if you have a specific camera or you're looking for a recommendation, again, I'm not going to get stuck into those today. But what I'm more than happy to do at any time, guys, is just do a one-on-one session. We can do it on video or just do it on phone, and I'll just share with you what I know and recommendations, all that kind of stuff. But so feel free after this to give me a shout and say, look, Paul, can we go through some of that? Or what are your thoughts on this, et cetera, et cetera. I am expecting that this hour is going to throw up as many questions as it will answer. So I'm here for you when those questions arise. So with that said, I'm going to start with the webinar, and we're going to go around that square. If that doesn't sound a little bit weird to you, we're going to go around the square and look at audio, video, et cetera, and plow through it. And again, I'm just going to continue until you stop me. So just unmute yourself, jump in with a question if you have questions as we go through this. So I said we go through audio first. I am going to unshare just for a second so we can go back to the video and talk about audio. So in the context, guys, of webinars, for me, audio is really simple. I use earbuds. I have used other microphones as well, and this is why I'm now on the bigger video, so as I can jump up every now and again and get some of these things. I do have one of these as a podcaster's microphone. That works pretty well as well. It's USB, so it just sticks into the USB port. However, it's big and bulky. You absolutely do not need that. I was surprised that the audio, certainly in MacBooks, is not bad if you want to use that. But my preference is always this. Here's a simple rule of thumb. Keep the microphone to your mouth as close as possible, because if you're in a larger room and you want to prevent some of that reverb, that echoey sound like you're in a kind of a cathedral type sound, the closer the microphone is to your mouth, the better. So I use these earbuds, but you can use the wired ones as well. They just go into the 3.5-inch jack on your, and for the purpose of a webinar, whether you're using that for coaching or for training, that's absolutely fine. People don't expect tip-top audio. It just has to be good enough for that. Something I will come back to on audio later on, I'm just going to touch on now, is without getting stuck into the details, I will come back to it, is the other half of audio that we always need to consider is your environment. The microphone is only one part of it, but a really, really important part is your environment. How do you dampen that reverb, that echoey sound? It's not so bad when you're doing a webinar with people. People will forgive that. However, when we get into the studio type, high-end production stuff, it is unforgivable to have that echoey sound. But I'll come back to tips and techniques and how to do that really simply without breaking the bank on that when we get to that section. So that's it on audio, unless anybody has any specific questions. Keep it really simple on webinars. There's nothing else to it. On video, right? I did a video, a short little clip that I sent out to everybody during the week on some tips and techniques on video. One was, if you remember, if you saw that video, was to raise up the laptop to eye level, because this is what the app. I'm just going to take a second now to change my video. So I've got two cameras on me. I'm looking at this camera right now, but I've also got my FaceTime, my MacBook camera. Like, look at that for a second. So there's a few things that are problematic when it comes to using the camera in your laptop, and that's what most people use, by the way. You know, it's first of all, the quality is okay because the sensor is tiny. It can get really, really grainy. And also, we talked about when you're looking down, I'm now looking into this camera here, is that the lighting's bad. You're looking up people's noses. You also, you can struggle with a laptop to control your background. You can see here, there's a bookshelf behind me, and the angles are ugly. There's a light over my corner. Very, very hard to control your environment. However, when you change it to an external camera like this one, you change everything. And I'm hoping that you'll see that just by changing that, you can make a big difference to the experience of your audience and the users. And I'm going to show you now, there's a little trick I have here. So I've got my iPhone on, and I use this, by the way, when I do a webinar. I log in as a second user so I can see what you're seeing. And I just have that beside me. So it's a kind of a double check. However, there's another reason for doing this as well. And it's this, is I am going to change around. Oh, I'm going to turn on the camera. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you that. So here's my laptop in front of me. But just behind the laptop is a little camera on a tiny little tripod. And you can see that I've got the...
Paul, we can only see the tiny camera's view, not your iPhone's view.
Okay, so if you tip on that little camera, it's strange. That should...
you gotta open it. You gotta turn on the gallery view so that you can see everyone. And
okay, hang on a second. Yeah,
thanks, Dan. Yeah, I can see it. Thank you. It's okay. I can see it through the gallery view.
You can, okay, you got it there. All right, good stuff. So now where am I going? Yeah. There we go. So can you see that little camera? I don't know if you see it on that second, on the gallery view, and if you can blow that up. It's just, by the way, let's not overcomplicate it. It is a, I'm just going to turn that video off. And it is a simple camera that sits behind my laptop. Now let's go back to this. Why do I'm seeing James on my...
We can all see you on the screen.
Oh, you can? Okay, grand. All right, good, because I couldn't see him. Okay, fine. So I'm looking now, my laptop is below me, and I'm looking straight into the camera above me. And that alone can make a huge difference to the quality, I believe. So the next thing is on lighting. Also in that video I shared with you was a simple technique, so there's no cost, is using a window light. Now, window lights are great, but they have their drawbacks. And the major drawback is you can't control the light. That the sun is passing through, going in behind clouds, it just changes the light. And there's that part of it. The other part of it is that, well, your window may not be in the most convenient place in your studio. So what I would encourage people to do is to get a couple of studio LED light kits. I've only got 2 in this room, and I'm going to show them to you. So I've got one over my shoulder, and to do this, I am actually going to go back and use my FaceTime camera so that you guys can see this. So over my shoulder over here, there's an LED. Now I'm going to show you the effect of turning that off. So I've got one up here that's looking straight down on me, and I can almost touch it. So it's an LED light just like this one behind me. And then I'm going to show you where you can get them. They're not expensive. I would absolutely say you need 2 of these lights. I'm going to show you the difference when you have, let me go back to them so you can see it. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when you turn this light off. So bear with me. So this is called a rim light. And I've turned it off. So now I only have one light on. So what you see here is that, yeah, it's good, straight light on top of me, but there's no separation between me and the backdrop. By simply putting on that extra light, so freeze frame that, and I'm going to put on that light again, and you'll see the difference just that extra light makes in terms of the quality of what's coming across. So I'm going to sound up, put on the light, back down again. There, and you just got that extra separation from the backdrop. That's what that extra light gives you. It's called a rim light. It just kind of gives you that extra touch of light there, which does make a difference. It's, you know, what people will do in any kind of a studio. So even for your webinars, your coaching, your training that's driven through, say, Zoom, for example, I would certainly have 2 of those lights. And that way you can always control the lighting. Whereas if you're just using window light, it's harder. When we get later on to ad hoc, we'll talk about window light is fine, but for this, I would keep it. Any questions on this, by the way? I have a slide I will share with you, just to share. Where is it here?
If you can send us the Amazon links of the lights, Paul, that would be.
Yeah, I can.
And make
That would be great. Thank you.
Some referral fee from that.
No, I don't bother with any of that shite. Bear with me a second. I was, here you go. That's all you need. Now, I am not, by the way, these are some lights I just went in earlier. These are typical. And this is why I'm not getting into referral links or any of that kind of stuff, is that you go do your own research on lights. I just wanted to show you, you know, the price, typically what you're looking at for a set of these lights. There's lots of others. These are not the lights I have. They're similar, but they're not these. There's a ton of these things. They're not expensive. And that's really why I'm sharing this with you. I'll send you the slides. If you want to get these by all means. When we get into studio lighting, I would recommend you get 4 of these, not 2 of them, but I'll get to that later on. But for what we're doing right now, 2 is absolutely fine. And you can see there, it's $239. It's nothing.
Paul, we just got a couple, and I think we spent maybe $140, $150.
Yeah, you absolutely can do. Somebody's got a bell on. The lights that I have here, I don't have what those barn doors, you see those flippy screens?
Right.
I just made them out of cardboard, right? But if I was getting them now, I would get them with the barn doors, particularly the one behind me. You want to use those doors just to control the light so it's not going all over the place. But you're absolutely right, Jim. $150, you should be able to get it. This is top end. This comes with a nice case. It comes with the 2 stands, which you absolutely need. But above from that, that's it. All right, let's look at content. Okay, for webinars, I'm not even going to touch on content. I'm not even going to go on to content because your content is your content. It is, if you're coaching, it's your coaching session. If it's your training, you have all of that. It's more, I'm going to touch on content when we get into the studio type video. I'll share with you what my process, what my workflow is on how I develop that content for videos. But for now, I'm just going to pass over it for webinars. Again, on delivery, I use slides just to keep me on track. Delivery is going to be more important when we get into the studio side of things, where you've got a script and you want to make sure you stick to that script. Whereas with more webinar ad hoc type delivery, you're not following a script. So again, I'm not going to spend any time on delivery right now. It is absolutely okay though to have notes up behind you for webinars. It is absolutely not okay for you to have notes up behind your camera when you're doing studio type quality videos. I mean, you've seen this yourself when Sandler, when people record a 2-3 minute video and you can see that their eyes are moving. They're not looking straight into their lens. They're looking over at the notes, and it's really disconcerting. It's awful. People expect more. When you've got that, you know, solid backdrop, good lighting, good audio, people expect you to look straight into the camera. Not on webinars, but certainly on when we get to the studio side of things, it is different. We need to take our game up a level. But for now, I'm going to move on. We're done with webinars unless you have any questions. What I would say to you is, at the minimum, you have to lift your laptop up to eye level. 2, get some decent audio, and 3, look directly into the lens on your laptop. What I would say, if you want to take it up to the next level, is use an additional camera external to your laptop. You'll be able to control it a lot better. You'll get better quality video, and also you'll be able to control what people see. You're able to zoom in and zoom out so that you're not getting all this extra rubbish that unfortunately you can't. It's hard, a lot harder to control with when you're using your laptop. Everybody okay with that so far? All right, you don't need to. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Can you tell us what cable are you using to connect the camera to your computer, and do you have,
great question,
what, like in front of you, are you using some software to change from one camera to another?
Okay, great questions. You can always tell the people who know their shit with those questions. All right, so when you're using the external camera, you're using your HDMI out. And yes, I did have to buy, and let me see where I have it here. You have to buy a little converter. This one is a startech.com converter. So it's taking the HDMI output from my camera, and then it's giving me a USB in to my laptop. So you absolutely do need that. So thanks for that question. I should have dealt with that, but I don't want to scare off too many people either, but that's, I don't know. It's not expensive, guys. You get it online. It's a HDMI to USB converter. That's the one I use, which is the Starcom. You can see it right there. All right. So that was that question. And the other question you had was about, do I use any conversion software? Absolutely not, no. So in Zoom, I'm able to select which inputs I'm using under video and under audio. So I'm able to swap between the FaceTime camera and the external camera. Once you plug it in, and this, by the way, I can't say this is true for PCs. The only thing I would say with PCs, if you have a PC, the best solution is open your window, chuck it out, and go buy an Apple. That's the only thing I would say to that. But with Apples, once you get that little converter, plug it in, it automatically appears in your Zoom link and says, this is the camera I want to use. It's the exact same with audio. If I have these, I also have the internal mic, and I could plug in another mic, and Zoom allows me to pick which mic I want to use. So it's really simple. There's no setup involved, or very little setup. That answered the question.
Yeah, just another question, because Dan seems to know what he's talking about and I don't. I didn't understand what is the adapter for.
Okay, good. Okay. So right now I've got my laptop and I've got an external camera over here.
Yeah.
The signal from the camera has to make its way to the laptop. In a perfect world, I'd be just able to put a cable into the camera and plug it into the laptop. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. That the signal that comes from the camera, it comes from the HDMI port on the camera, and you're plugging it into a USB port on your laptop. So
why don't you plug it into the HDMI?
Okay, now this is where I'm going to put my hand up and say I don't know, other than that the signal format is different. I don't think you can just get a straight mini HDMI to standard HDMI cable. I believe, because I researched this, and I was, again, I'm not that technical. It just said you need to get this. So when I said,
okay, I'll get it now.
Yeah, it is. I do believe you need it. And then the beauty of it is no matter what external camera, I have different cameras. I could put this camera on it, and I could plug this camera into it, and that goes into my laptop as well. So, but at the moment, I'm using a different camera.
Hey, Paul, I have an external camera that I use that plugs right into my USB port. Would that work also?
Okay. No. So, see, there's a difference between downloading your photographs from your camera than there is running a live stream from your camera. And that's what that little box doing is converting the live stream. So if you have a standard cable with your camera and you just want to download photographs, that's easy. It just downloads them, but it's one way. But with the camera, it's different. That's my understanding of it. So you can certainly try it out, but I don't believe it'll work. If it doesn't work, this is what you need. Is that probably not the answer you wanted, but I don't. I mean, I've done all this myself when I was when I was starting it up, and I learned very quickly that you need this. So I would just get it. It's not expensive, guys.
Okay, thanks, bud.
Okay, no problem.
Hey,
but
Paul, what do you recommend for camera quality? In other words, if we're using the camera on our laptop, how do we determine whether the quality is sufficient or whether we should, in fact, go to an external camera?
Okay, another great question. So the quality, if you've got good lighting, by the way, the quality on your FaceTime camera is okay. It's 720, it's not full HD, that's the first thing. The problem with it is the sensor is tiny. So if you don't have a really good lighting, it can get very grainy. And let me just stop this for a second and I'll show you the difference. It's seeing is believing. Let me just turn this down and there I go. And I'm going to go back to my FaceTime camera to answer Dan's question, I can just go back into Zoom now and looking at this. So I'm going to go up here and, you know, it's okay. If you're doing one-to-one coaching with somebody, it's okay. But if you want to do something, I'm going to switch back and you'll see the difference. Now, remember, the lighting is exactly the same with both cameras. The audio is exactly the same with both cameras. It's just, I've just changed camera. You can see there's a difference. And the camera you have, I think you got, I can't remember which one you got. We were talking before about this, Jim. It's absolutely fine. I'm using this Sony AX53. I could use, there's any number of cameras I can use. I often use this one here when I'm doing videos as well. The Sony one, just for something ad hoc like this, is better, I find. I won't get stuck in the weeds on why this is better,
Okay.
but it's just easier managed. Partly because I've got a little flippy out screen and I can see myself on it, and I keep remembering I'm looking at the screen and I should be looking at the lens. You know, we're just drawn to look at faces, which is mad. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because the camera that we have in our training room is broadcast quality. It's really good.
Yeah.
Now we're all banished to our homes, and now we're doing laptop, and we're going to be doing sales mastery and foundations and everything. Do we need to upgrade? Probably.
Yeah, look, I would recommend it. If it was a one-off, I'd say don't bother. But if you're going to be doing this for a while, I would certainly recommend it. I have some examples and recommendations later on in this session on different cameras. Again, this is not saying go buy this camera, because there's umpteen cameras. Anything you would have bought in the last 5 years should be fine. But I'm going to give you a few different examples of what you can use for this. You can, by the way, you can get a simple Logitech camera that's designed for computers, and it just clips onto your screen here. And they're quite good. They're HD quality. So I would recommend those for sure. They're better than the built-in ones. But the only thing is you can't move the camera around. It doesn't have zoom on it. So, like, you know, you're going to be doing this for a few months. I would recommend getting one of these cameras.
Actually, there's a Logitech that's available for like $60 that does have zoom on.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one of this.
They're good cameras. Sorry, good.
Yeah.
Somebody else had one. What's this one? Web camera. There you go. There's another Logitech. Yep, that's it. So they're good cameras. Don't get me wrong. I'm using these other ones, guys, because I have them. If I didn't have any cameras and I was going out and buying one, I would certainly at least try out that Logitech ones and use it as a benchmark. Is it better than the built-in camera? If it is, that's good. Could it be better if you had a camera like this? That's up for you. That's for you to decide. There is another benefit as well, is that I can record this separately to an SD card in my camera if I want to as well. But you don't have to. You're right. Don't get. You'll notice at the beginning when I had those 4 items, none of them involved cameras. The cameras are the easiest bit. Audio, lighting, delivery, and content are by far more important than the cameras. So I wouldn't get too caught up in that. All right. Let's go back, if that's all right, and go back to this. Are we done with the webinars? I wanted to move on now to the sexy stuff. If I can pull this up. There we go.
That was pretty sexy.
Well, it gets studio stuff is sexier, Jim. That's for sure. So audio, again, I'm just going to deal with the 4 things now. With studio audio, you're at a different level. I know, Dan, you've got a lot of experience in this as well, so please chime in with your experience in this, and anybody else for that matter. I'm going to start dealing with audio, and I'm going to share with you some mics and things. So I said before, 2 things we got to remember. One is the microphone that you use, and 2 is your environment. And your environment is hugely important when it comes to studio quality, broadcast quality audio. In this little room here, I'm going to start actually with let me start this camera. This is the second camera. Again, you'll need to get this video, guys, in your feed. Let me see, where do I get it? And turn it around. All right. must be missed. Sorry, I was starting my second camera and I don't see it. Can you see that second camera I've got? It's my phone. For some reason, I don't see it.
Yes, we can see your second camera.
All right, good. I don't know what.
You're pointing it towards yourself now. Is it selfie mode?
Yeah, well, I can't. I'm looking for the bit. Okay, so what can you see? I can't see what it's seeing, and I should be able to
We
see.
can see your camera that you're pointing it towards.
Stop sharing. Sorry, I see what I've done. I had sharing. As you can tell, I'm no Zoom aficionado. So what I wanted to share with you so here's my laptop. Go down here, and then behind my laptop, you'll see on the wall. See those those black panels? They're just foam panels. They're there to absorb the audio. That if you've ever walked into an empty house and you speak, you can hear this echoey sound, that reverb. Well, that microphones pick that up really easy. And even if you've got stuff in your room, it can sound echoey. And that's really, when it comes to studio level, you just cannot get away with that. It's fine for webinars, but not for studio level. So to help with that, I've got those panels. I've got over here, so I've got this curtain. So behind this is a window, but this is a special material. It's a absorbent material for sound. Both sides, by the way, keep sound out because there's a window there and I don't want external noises coming in, but also it absorbs any echoes, that reverb that may be coming out that side. So I have it in front of me, so there's no echo coming back. I have it behind me. And as you can see from the shelf behind me as well, let me turn that camera off. The shelves behind me are there for a reason as well, because they also help to break up the sound so it's not reflecting straight back. And the more soft furnishings that you have in a room like this, the better in terms of sound absorption. You do not need what I have. I mean, those panels up there, probably about $75, $80 for what I have on the wall. Ideally, by the way, if a sound engineer came in here, they'd have sound panels in the ceiling, they'd have carpet on the floor, that have wall to wall. You don't need that. You need just good enough. You need to make sure that the audio is not a distraction. If I was recording a rock band in a studio, absolutely, I'd need everything covered. But for the purpose of this, you really don't. You just need to take out that echoey reverb that gets caught up. The sound, I could, instead of using this, if it wasn't noisy outside, I could have just put up a duvet or a blanket behind, in front of me behind the camera. I could have put an old mattress, any kind of soft furnishings that absorb that rebounding sound makes a huge difference to the quality of your sound. So that's the first thing. Make sure wherever you're doing the recording is set up to maximize that. Now let's talk about, unless anybody has any questions, let's talk about microphones. So yep, go down.
I'm gonna go back again to video if that's okay with you very quickly.
Please. Yeah.
I can see the depth of field working. You know what's behind you, it's blurry, and that makes the view, it's definitely cooler.
Yeah.
But so I have a small room in my house that I want to turn into a studio, but I'm worried that it's not, you know, long enough for the depth of field to work. And I'm seeing that you're in a small room. So what size is your room?
I'm touching that shelf behind me. Now, what I would say, sorry guys, to everybody else, myself and Dan are going to go off on a little tangent here on depth of field. Again, if you're not familiar with it, and this is really important in terms of video quality, is that, and why, by the way, the videos in phones and the videos in your laptops are not great as well, is that they have everything is in focus. Everything. You're in focus. You could read what's on those books. And by the way, Dan, that's not great either. That's one of the reasons why I don't like using this particular camera. It's okay, but it's a small sensor. That's why if I'm doing it, I would use this camera. It's a much bigger sensor. I'll do that with a 1.4 50mm lens, and that's much blurrier. It's a much better. So if you've got a small room, that's the way I would go. I picked up a 50mm 1.4 lens for $200 secondhand. They're 400 new, like, so, and that works perfect. It really does. It gives you, if you look at some of the videos that I've recorded that I put out, those kind of 2-3 minute videos with that in the background, you'll see that that background is blurrier than it is right now. But I thought for this session, it really didn't matter too much, and there's not that too many people would notice. I mean, if I go closer, you're going to see that backdrop is going to be even blurrier. Then if I go back, it's going to change all those dynamics. The other option you have, Dan, is green screen. Up on top of those shelves, I have a green screen cloth that I can just drop down and pin it. So that can become a green screen background if I wanted to as well. I know I do have another one upstairs, but I have a small one I could use here as well. Green screen I'll come to for other people as part of this session as well, particularly if you've got a small room and you want to make it look really big. Or if you're using Zoom and you want to use the virtual backdrops, use a green screen. Okay, so for everybody else, guys, just Dan's asked a really good question. When it comes to video and making it look kind of studio quality, is that your subject, i.e. you, obviously needs to be sharp and in focus. The backdrop should be a little bit out of focus. If it's in focus, it's distracting. People start looking at the books and see, oh, you know, what's the title of that book, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want any of those distractions. So that's probably a little bit too much in detail or too advanced for most people on the call. Happy to deal with it offline if people want to talk about it, or I might do another video just on that topic alone. But yeah, and that's another reason for using a kind of a DSLR type camera rather than like your Logitech cameras, by the way, guys, everything will be in focus, right? That's the downside. And that comes because it's a small sensor. And there's nothing you can do about that except get a bigger camera. All right.
Hey, Paul, as you move to microphones, I was wondering whether those, what are they, unidirectional or boom mics are useful in order to do away with sort of all the audio dampening that you just shared with us. Given, you know, this room that I'm in is a multi-purpose, I really can't set up lots of other things in it. You know, can I get away with not doing any of that by using one of those, you know, unidirectional mics very close to my mouth?
Yeah, the closer the better, for sure. That will help. There's no question about it. But even as you speak right now, I can still hear a little bit of reverb in your backdrop. What you can do, by the way, is this curtain that I have here. You can get this has little hoops in it, and you can put that on a bar if you really wanted to. But you're right. For example, this camera, this is a shotgun mic, and if that gets really close to you, yeah, it does. It eliminates a lot of that reverb. The problem is it's now in shot. If I take it out of shot, the further I take it away, then up there is not so bad. It's about a foot. You can get away with maybe 18 inches on a mic like this, where it eliminates a lot of what you're talking about. But if it goes back further than that, it does pick up other stuff as well. So like the camera now I'm on, I could touch it. I could put this mic on that camera and it would also be reasonably good. So yeah, it's a good option. There's no question about it. Or if you have a stand, you can put that in. A lot of people, you see them on you. By the way, a great place to learn a lot of this stuff is just, you know, watch YouTubers who do it. And a lot of them will show you how they set up their gear. A lot of them will have a little mic like this, just out of shot on a stand. And that's really good. So
I've got two questions for you just quickly. When you're doing webinars, do you recommend standing or sitting?
Great question. I do both. I think standing is really good, obviously, from an engagement point of view. If you're off the top of your head, for me, standing I prefer. However, there are times where sitting, for example, I've got a lot of stuff on my table right now that you can't see, could be notes, but I have a lot of gear, and that would be next to impossible to do when I'm standing up. But my preference is to do it standing up, for sure.
Second question, in terms of cameras, when we look at DSLRs, if you have a DSLR, does it need to be one that's purchased in the last 5 years, or if it's older, can you get away with it? That's asked by Christine.
That depends. What I would say, Chris, is after this call or on a separate one, share with me what you have. I can't answer that unless I know what it is. If it has a video capability and it has a HDMI output, you should be fine, right? So if it has those, if you're unsure, give me a call afterwards. Let's have a call, and then just send me an email and show me what you have, and I'll check it out for you and let you know. All right.
Hey, Paul.
All right, good stuff. So, yep, go ahead.
Just regarding the question, Robin's question on standing versus sitting. We just did a webinar yesterday for about 120 people. And Clint and I did it together. Far more effective if you're standing, because if you think about it, you're delivering your mastery and your foundations standing. You're not doing it sitting. So when you're standing, it's just more energizing. It's more engaging. They see that you're a little bit more involved, as opposed to kind of sitting here. And you know, it's if that's your environment, if you're training and standing, why wouldn't you do it on a webinar?
Great point. Great point. I never thought about that, Jim, because I've never done training standing up. But I remember watching Greg doing it, and he always stood up doing it. And so you're right. Yeah, if you're training, you're in delivery mode. It's different. Whereas you're sitting, it's not the same. It's not the same. Coaching, I think you can get away with sitting, but you're right. Standing up for training. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Thanks, Jim. Yeah.
If I could come back to the camera. So on a DSLR, I've used it to shoot video, you know, obviously on a memory stick on that, but I've never used it to use as a camera live. And what I'm hearing you say is that's probably preferable to use my DSLR. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. If you just get your DSLR like this one, you stick it on the thing, right? And just put it in live view mode. Now, you'll need that cable out into your computer, but Zoom will see that. You do it, and what the camera sees is coming up on your screen. It is really simple. It really is. It's not complicated at all. There's no special settings you need.
Thanks,
just put it into video mode and use your standard settings.
Lewis,
right.
I like your backdrop.
So I just simply shot a picture of the reception area and shot it as background. I don't have a green screen, as you can tell.
But can you share, Lewis? Can you share your background? Can you send us the picture so we can use it?
I would be happy to. What's the easiest way, Rian, to do it? Send it into the Dropbox or put it into the WhatsApp?
Yeah, WhatsApp or Dropbox, or I couldn't open the Dropbox right now, but Ryan is sorting it out. So,
can I jump in on that one for a second, guys? I have a Dropbox with a lot of different backgrounds as well. So if we drop Lewis's backdrop in there as well, we have it all in one place. Then people can use an office backdrop. You can use a Sandler backdrop. Now, my microphone is about to die because these are just, I can hear them dying on me.
Hey, just one thing on the backdrop.
Swap to a different microphone, so bear with me while I do that, folks.
Yeah, and you do that on this backdrop.
Now, I'm using, by the way, the system, the Apple laptop microphone right now. I don't know if you can hear a difference on that. I need to just check that my speaker is okay. The earpods are gone. Okay, good. All right. Can everybody hear me? Okay, could just somebody raise a hand if you can hear me? Okay, good. I am now using the audio in the laptop. Okay, it's not bad. It's not the worst thing in the world if you had to use that audio, but it's not my preference. All right, so let's move this on. So now we're talking about studio quality audio. Let me go back and just put this back up so we're staying on track. There we go. Right. Here's a few other examples of mics I've used. So that can go on top of a camera. We've talked about this one already. However, the disadvantage of this is that there's a lot of setup involved. It has to be on a boom arm, etc. I much prefer wireless mics. And so the first wireless mic I ever got was recommended to me a couple of years ago by a friend. You recognize these, they're often used. You'll see them in professional AV companies. If you've ever spoken at conference or spoken at events, you'll see these as Sennheiser mics. These are really, really good. They're about $600, I remember. There's an updated version of these. So you could get these used really easily. They're quite good. However, they're probably overkill. I have something else I'm going to recommend to you that I would get if I were in your shoes, if I didn't have a wireless mic and you wanted to do studio level. It's this, look at it, everything is in this little pouch, both the receiver and the transmitter, where these things are much bigger. So I'm going to share with you what this is. And I would say, if you're going to do studio quality mics, just get these. They're these Rode microphones. It is a, I don't even know what,
I'll have to write this out and send it out to you. So there's two parts to it. There's a receiver and a transmitter. So the beauty about this, guys, is look, this just clips on. That's it. So if you're interviewing somebody and you want to, sure I have audio, there we go. Interview them on camera, just clip on them and they're ready to rock. That goes into your camera, or you can put this into into a phone, for example, if you wanted to record them at a distance using your phone. Really, really simple. And these are about $300, but I would certainly recommend them. Now, another advantage of these, because people sometimes look at these and go, okay, this is a bit ugly, it's big. I'm gonna just share a second, stop sharing this. I wanna go back for a second, folks. Oh, sorry, no one. I'm just looking at these slides. They seem to have disappeared. I'm there somewhere. Okay, never mind. I can't see it, but I'm just going to presume that you can see me. What is it? So there's another advantage to these. It's this. It's ugly, right? People look at that and it's big. Now, I don't worry about that, but sometimes people go, well, how do I hide this? The beauty about these is that this is a little lavalier mic. Again, these are not expensive. This is a Rode mic, probably $30, $40. And this can go into this, and this can be hidden underneath your clothing. And then all you have up is this little lavalier, standard little lavalier mic that clips on as well. So you have both those options with this. You can buy these as a kit, or you can just buy this on its own and buy this separately. Entirely up to you. I would certainly get it as a kit. I think it's well worth it. So
I've posted a link to that in the comment field. It's called a Rode Wireless Go, and it's $140 for the full kit.
Oh, it's even cheaper than I remembered it. Excellent. Good stuff. Thanks, Rian. Oh yeah, there's a few other advantages to these. One is it's rechargeable. These things, these freaking eat batteries. And I've done these and I've reused them to, say, record a class. And unbeknownst to me, halfway through the class, the batteries have crapped out on me. Whereas this, there's a little battery indicator, but it's rechargeable using a USB charger. So you could keep them topped up. There's another advantage to this as well. I'm sorry, I'm just looking around on my table because I know I put this somewhere. Oh, it's in my pouch. So if you're outdoors, and you often get that, particularly if you've ever used your iPhone to record it outdoors and it's windy, and you get that horrible, horrible windy noise. What you need is one of these. It's a dead cat. That's what it's called. And it just clips onto the top. Well, it does clip onto the top of this. And there we go. Clips onto the top of that. And then you pin that on yourself as well. And that then gets rid of a lot of wind noise. You can also buy, if you're using one of these lavalier mics, that has a little kind of windbreak on it. But you can also get a bigger windshield, like that little furry dead cat that goes on top of it as well, to kill that so you don't get that awful wind noise. That's a killer. Remember we said audio's is job number one. Screw that up and people will stop listening. So if you're outdoors, you absolutely need a dead cat. All right. So that's it on audio for studio. Remember, your environment is important and your mic is important. As I said, I have a few, but if I was getting rid of all of it and just keeping it, it would be this little baby. I love it. And it's small, it's light, it's rechargeable, it's got the dead cat, blah, blah, blah. It's really, really good. So, all right, sales job done. Let's go back to, sorry, Rian, you're keeping an eye on the chat because I can see several questions come up, but I'm not paying attention to them. I'm going to go back and just to keep this thing moving. And we're on audio. So let's go back here and talk about lighting. Oh, right. I talked about lighting for webs to use two those LED lights for, okay, so for, you can get away with two lights. For example, I have done those 3 to 5 minute marketing studio type videos, and I've done them here with this backdrop. You'll have seen some of them. And I use just two lights. I use this key light up here, and I use that one over behind me as the rim light. That's it, Joe. You only need the two. I would use a different camera. I wouldn't use this one. I want that more of that blurry background, but you don't have to. This would be okay. I think this as a studio quality camera would be acceptable. However, if we're going to talk about green screens, if you really want to be able to control your background, and be able to, you could do what they have in home office where they have just a plain colored background. I think they use blue. Or you want to be able to, what I've done, and I've actually had an example of it here somewhere. Oh no, it was in a video I put out during the week. I had slides as my backdrop. So where the green screen was in editing, I was able to drop in some slides. But you can put yourself in any location you want. Green screen is nice because it gives you lots of options when you're editing in terms of what you want to do with your backdrop. For those of you not familiar with it, what green screen is very simple. I'm going to try and, so I have one here, and I will just clip that up here at the top. I'm not going to get too fancy with this, guys. I'm just going to, so it doesn't fall down, I'm going to clip it there. But I would have it, now that's not perfect. That should normally be all behind me. And what you do with that is that you record yourself with that in the backdrop, and then in editing in your software, and that's a topic for a different webinar, unless somebody has a specific question. I use Final Cut Pro, if anybody's think, but Premiere Pro, there's several of them out there work fine. What you do is, it's called chroma keying. It basically takes all the green away and substitutes a different image in the backdrop. And it uses green for one reason only. Most people don't wear green, and there's no green in your skin, there's no green in your blood vessels, there's no green in your hair. So green is a safe color to remove from an image without removing anything else. If I was wearing a green jumper and that green background, or a green sweater, a green shirt, it would remove that too, depending on the tone, but it would certainly remove a lot of it. So that's why they choose green. There's no other reason for it. You can use blue as well. It doesn't really matter too much, but the standard is green, and that's what I use. That's what I would stick with. So that's why I want to use green screen. Now, I'm going to, what the hell, I'll leave it there for now. The key thing with green screens is that they're evenly lit and that they're smooth. So I would pin that up behind me. Now, actually in here, I'm looking at that screen behind me. It's reasonably well lit, so I could probably get away with that one light on top of it. However, upstairs where I have a much bigger screen, and it's full length if I want to use full length. I also have 2 additional lights on that just to make sure that that's well lit across the thing. So that's why I would have the extra 2 lights just to light up the screen and the backdrop. Again, you don't need them, but it's optional. You certainly need these. Well, you absolutely need 1, preferably need 2. But if you're close enough to your screen, and you got my light up here, it's quite a big light, so you can see it's lighting up everything behind me, probably enough. Any specific questions on green screens? What I would say, if you plan on using green screens, just go on YouTube and Google tutorials on green screens. They'll tell you everything I did, but probably go into a bit more detail.
Paul, when we're trying to evenly light a green screen, do LEDs do a good job on their own, or do we need to do something to avoid hot spots?
No, LEDs do a great job. I have 2 LEDs because they're square, and they're about a foot. They're a foot square. That's not right. They're square, and they're 12 inches, whatever, vertical and horizontal. And what I do is, if I have them on like this, so, and I move them because you can move them around. If I do see a hot spot, I'll move it. Now, what I do have is, I have a light meter, so I can go around because it's a big screen, and I can check that the exposure is right. However, you really don't need that. Your eye could do that as well if you just stand back from it a little bit. So to answer your question, if you had 1, you'll get a hot spot. But if you have 2 and you can move them around, you can eliminate hot spots. Remember, if the shadows and vignetting up at the top or down below outside of my frame, it doesn't matter. It's just so long as it's even within the frame that I'm shooting. That's all that really matters. And with 2, you're absolutely fine. You don't need it. For any kind of head and shoulders, if you were doing a full body in a studio, yeah, maybe you probably need more. But for head and shoulders, the kind of stuff we do, yeah, you don't need it. You really don't. I've certainly never found it.
Paul, what about filters? Do we need any filters on the lighting?
No, not at all. No. Now, what I would say to you is, so the lights I have here are daylight temperature. So for people are not familiar with this. Lighting comes in what's called temperature. So you have orange lighting, you have blue lighting, you'll have magenta tones, whatever. So standard daylight is a kind of a bluey tinge to it. Our naked eye probably doesn't notice it unless they're well trained. But if I was to, let me just share with you a couple of things just to show you the difference. So I've just put on the light above me. It's not very bright, but I am going to turn off the key light on me here. Actually, I probably...
One thing you might want to do is stop sharing your screen so we can see you a bigger view.
Oh, yes. Good point. All right. That's a great idea. Hang on, let's do this. All right. Now, see that? See how orange I am? The two things. First of all, that's an overhead lighting. That's a no-no. They look just as ugly as hell. And secondly, I'm like an Oompa Loompa, right? I'm that orange. Because those lights, even though to our naked eye, it doesn't always look orange, but on a video, on a photograph, they look really, really orange, and they're as ugly as hell. So I want to get rid of that, and I just come back to daylight. And that you can see that. It's actually, you see the bluiness. When I change this quickly, you'll see how the kind of blue tinge, but it's actually daylight temperature. So if I had light coming through my window on this, it wouldn't be disconcerting. It would be the same. Now I'll go back, put my light on over here. It's my second key, rim light. And I'll turn off this ugly light, and then we're back. So what was the question? I can't remember the question.
Hey, Paul, you had mentioned that you can be standing up and have the slide deck behind you as you're actually presenting it. Can you share that? Because that's a pretty good insight.
Yeah, okay. So, you ever watch the weather men, weather women on TV, and they're presenting the weather, and they've got this map up, and they're pointing at this map? Well, there's nothing on that map. It's a green screen. They have a monitor that they can see themselves on, but behind them, there's nothing. That actually gets dropped in editing. Now, it's done live, obviously, on TV, like virtual backdrops on Zoom. However, if you were doing a recorded video, like a studio recorded video, those slides can be dropped in afterwards. And that's really easy to do. You could do it. There's a kind of a workaround if you're using virtual backdrops. So you could have, for example, let's say you had 10 slides. You could load all of those 10 slides up in Zoom as virtual backdrops and then just change them as you go through it. You could do it that way as well. So then what's behind me is green at the moment, but that would be your slide. And you'll see an example of that if you go get that video. It's in the Dropbox. Reno will send you a link to it. But it's a video I recorded during the week about how to use virtual backdrops in Zoom. And you'll see them there. I use a slide of the submarine as a virtual backdrop. So you could use it that way as well. And, you have to set it up in advance, but it's relatively easy. If you go into, say, your Sales Mastery slide deck and just export it as JPEGs, as images, it will export all of those individual slides as a separate JPEG image. And then you can just upload those to Zoom and then click through them as your virtual backdrops and change them as you go along as well. I was talking more in the context of a studio video where I can change it in editing afterwards, but I could do it live too. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I like to take it a step further if I may. So assuming now you have these slides in the back and now you want to edit, like let's say on a whiteboard, and then you want to be showing, because like one of the things here in Sandler is that we have to do a whiteboard and kind of like draw these graphics to represent the slide that you're talking about. So is there a way to have that virtual backdrop in the back, and then now you're doing the editing on the whiteboard?
Okay.
Can you take it that step?
Are you talking about a proper big virtual whiteboard that you might have in your training room?
Well, this is for, not much of a big budget, but like a creative way to, to stream and make it just very effective where you can like clean it or not even have to clean it.
I'm going to give you a little, sorry, I'm just getting rid of this because it's my OCD is kicking in and I just don't like it hanging up there behind me. So I'm going to share with you, I can't demonstrate this right now because I didn't plan on this beforehand and I had to plug it in. So this here is what's called a Wacom, W-I-C, whatever, Wacom, W-I-C-O-M. tablet. It's used by photographers. It is a tablet. It's just basically like a trackpad, and it is used for Photoshop. So if I have a photograph and I want to edit it, and it comes with a little pen I have here somewhere as well, but I could plug that in and use my Zoom whiteboard. So this is actually my white, so I can draw on it, is what I'm saying. I can write on it, I can draw triangles, and that's all we need in training, right, is triangles. But I can do that, and that would come up in my Zoom whiteboard. So I'm sharing it as a whiteboard. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So then you could put the whiteboard next to it, like in a parallel form, where you're seeing both images in one slide.
Could do. I've never done it, but I've used this a lot.
What's that called? How do I get my hands on that?
You can get these in any Best Buy. You can get them online. It's called a Wacom Intuos, INTUOS Pro. This is a small version. You can get a larger version. I got two of them. This is fine. This is the one I use the most. It's as you can see it on my hand. It's quite big in terms of writing. So whatever I write on this appears in Zoom on your student's whiteboard facility in Zoom, so long as that's what you're sharing. So you just have to manage in and out of that. So that's a workaround. There, maybe a couple of $100. Again, you get them secondhand if you wanted to.
I haven't tried this yet, but I heard that if you're doing your Zoom through your MacBook, you can also connect your iPad and then share your iPad and use that as a whiteboard.
I believe so.
You can also have your slide deck and be writing right on top of your slide deck.
Exactly. If you've come over from the dark side and you're using an Apple and you've got an iPad as well, absolutely you can use that. The Wacom you can use on any device, whether it's Apple or PC, but yeah, you can use that as well, for sure. Again, I haven't done it, but I've read about it. So another nice little workaround. All right. You probably, if you've got one of those Microsoft Surface things, you could probably draw on your screen and that could be your whiteboard. Again, haven't tried it. It'd be worth trying it though.
Right.
All righty. So for studio, this might be worth, I'm just conscious of time, folks. So if you need to disappear, I'm just going to keep recording this. And if there's somebody, if it's only myself and Reen on it, I'm going to keep recording it. So if you need to drop off, I'm conscious we're up on time, but there's a lot more I wanted to get through on this. And so this is for the recorded version. If you need to drop off, if not, please stay. So content for me, I use Evernote. And what I have is I have 4 different folders in Evernote specifically for video content. And by the way, guys, I'll share this with you. I have probably about 60 scripts I use for those videos that you've seen me do. They're all scripted. None of that shit is off the top of my head. I could not do that. There's very few people I know. I know Mattson can do it. There's very few people I know who can do that. I certainly can. So mine are all scripted. And what I'll do is I'll have one folder which is just for ideas. Spark of an idea. I'm out walking. Something comes into my mind and I think that would make a good video. And I'll just, on my phone in Evernote, type down a few ideas. And then when I have time and I take that out and I might pad it out a bit more and flesh it out a bit more and put some more meat on the bones. That will be then in my second folder. And then my third folder is when it's ready to record, when I have it the way I want it in terms of the words I want to use, etc. That will go into what's called record ready. So again, I'll share all of this with you. I'll put them up in Dropbox. Feel free to use them as is, amend them, use them to spark your own ideas or translate them or kind of change the language for local needs, whatever you want, if they're of value to you. Excuse me. And then the fourth folder is when it's recorded, I put it in there, so it's done. And I do that because several times I've had to come back and re-record ones. For example, in the early days, when I became aware of the importance of audio, I had to go back and record those. When I changed backdrops and started using green screens, I re-recorded some of them, or I just had kind of updated my ideas. So I never throw out one even when it's recorded. But that's the process. I use those 4 stages for all of the scripts. And so that's the kind of the content creation side of it in terms of workflow. Now, in terms of getting that script onto a camera, there's a couple of tools I use. I always use a teleprompter, always. Again, I just don't have that ability to finish a sentence and stay on point. I'll drift off, or I'll forget where I was going, and I just cannot do it. Again, there are some people who can do it, and I'm looking around because I have a big, oh, here we go. I'm looking for it, it's underneath my screen. So this is the one I've used traditionally. It's a teleprompter, right? So it's just glass that is semi-transparent. And on the back here, what you have is the camera sits here, and that goes on a tripod. And then I'm standing, and I'm looking obviously at the camera through the glass, but there is then an iPad which sits here, and it's only an old iPad. It's an old one I was going to throw out, and that's got the teleprompter software, $10, and that scrolls the content. So I'm looking at this like you guys are right now. You'd be reading this thing scrolling up on it. That was about $400. I bought that in the UK online. There's lots of them now available. However, I want to share with you an even sexier one. This is one I got recently, and I've only used it a couple of times. It's one I've got more for travel, that if I'm traveling and I want to record something, I ain't bringing that. That's heavy. And I don't want to bring an iPad and all that kind of stuff. And it's this. This is, let me show you the box first of all. I bought this last June when I was in the States. I bought it online. It's called a Podcaster. Now, there's some real advantages in this. Here we go. Here's what it is. I'm going to take the screen thing off. First of all, it's the size. It's small. Secondly, what this does is this actually clips onto the front of your camera. So I don't need this extra rig. Whoa! I didn't do that really well. I don't need this extra rig to go with it. That just flips in front of the camera. And the third element is that if I pull this out here, is that instead of using an iPad, I can use my phone. So the phone has the software on it, and the camera's looking through it. And I can put that on the little small, you saw the little tiny little tripod. That could be, so I could have this literally sitting over this camera right now. And you can see, I'm looking right through it. You can't see that. But that's how I would use something like this on the go to record. And you can use this in your home office. You can use it in your office. The screen on this is a little bit smaller, so you have to be that bit closer to your camera, but that's not a big deal. I mean, I'm close enough now with this camera. I could be using this right now as a teleprompter for this session using just this. So,
Paul, do you remember what that cost?
Well, I don't. Rain, if you're on the line, maybe you could look it up. It's called the Podcaster. It's the Parrot, P-A-R-R-O-T, teleprompter. It's not ridiculously expensive. Maybe I'm going to guess at 150, if that. Now, the advantage as well, it comes with all of these rings. So no matter what your lens you're using, it has one of these rings that fits on the front of your lens. So it has all of those. But that's it. There's nothing more sophisticated than that in it.
And I heard you recommend using 50 millimeter. Should I stay with a 50 millimeter?
Not necessarily. I use 50 millimeter lens when I'm in here for two reasons. One is the 50 millimeter lens has a 1.4 aperture. That means you get that, it allows a lot of light in, and it also makes the background nice and blurry when I'm this close to it. However, when I'm doing upstairs with a larger green screen, I actually use this lens. It's a 24-70, and I use it at the 70 millimeter lens. Now, any more than that, and I'm too far away from the teleprompter. So kind of 50 to 70 is probably a good range.
Thank you.
The cost of that Parrot is $99.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, so I don't suppose that these will work then with the Logitech cameras?
No, I doubt it very much. However, with the Logitech cameras, what you can do is, because that camera is at the top of your screen, right? I'm going to say the top of your screen there is, you could have a little teleprompter just underneath it, and you might get away with it because, you know, if your eyes veer away from the lens, people notice it. Like if I'm looking at myself right now, I think I'm looking at you, but I'm not. I'm looking at me, but I need to look into the lens, and people do notice that. So there is and I know, Rian, I shared this with you. I'm trying to remember what it is. There is an app that you can use on your phone, and you could use it with the Logitech as well. And what it does is, if I could find this, I'm not going to spend time now on this, if I can't find it right now, but I know I shared it. Here we go. It's the it's the SELV, the SELVI, sorry, SELVI. So I'm going to do a test on this. So what this does is it actually puts a little teleprompter on your iPhone, and you can see it puts the script right up as close as you can get to the lens. So you can read this and it'll scroll it here. So you can be using your phone, and it's very hard to see your eye look down because it's only like a, you know, half an inch or an inch down from the camera. So that's even without all of the kind of semi-reflective glass. That's a nice thing to have. I have it as a backup that if I'm traveling and I want to record some notes and do a quick video, I would do it there. But you could get away with that if you're using your Logitech camera, I think.
Great, thanks, man.
No problem. So what else have we done? Content. Yeah, I've talked about delivery. Absolutely, for me, it's a must to use the teleprompter for studio quality. All right, last one, guys. And thanks for. I know that I can hear people heading off, but for anybody who stayed behind, I do think these are important as well, which is using your phone for video. Remarkably good. You could use this in. Almost for a studio quality. The only thing you won't get with this is you won't get the blurry backgrounds. But if you go online and you can see, buy a ring light, R-I-N-G, and it's literally just a circle of light that goes around your phone. So your phone will sit like this on a small little tripod. The light will go around it, and you have a perfect little setup for this kind of a video. It works really, really, really well. You don't need this big kind of key light up here and light behind you. The ring light works well. You see a lot of influencers on YouTube and Instagram use that setup. They will use this and they'll use a little ring light. Why this is handy as well. Yeah.
Another thing I've seen people do is there's a device you could do that attaches to your phone. You put it on the computer screen, so the monitor in front. Yes. And then you take a Word document, open up your Word document, change the tint so it's not bright white, but to a color that's more, you know, accommodating to your face, and that will throw the light on your face.
Ah, okay, okay, very good. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that working as well. Yeah, for sure. I haven't seen it work, but I could imagine. I've done this before, actually. So I have a few little, did I bring one down? I did. So there's a few other little options that I can do as well. This, you can see the size of it. This is a really handy little light, and it can sit. Now, if I, for example, if I turn off this, that's just that little light there. And the light thing about this as well is that we talked about light temperature. This does warm light as, sorry, not the wrong one. It does warm light as well. So you can see that orangey look. I don't be a peach, but I can turn that down if I wanted to. I'll go back to full daylight. But if I had two of these sitting on my desk, remember this, whoops, this is, they're quite small. But if I had two of those sitting on my desk, you know, that would be really good lighting too. And it's very, very portable. That's what I have these for, is really.
That's what I use. That's exactly what I use, Paul.
What's that called? What do I look for?
So this is called an aperture. It's an ALH198C, but aperture. Now spelled APUTURE, APUTURE. And they have these, and they have little smaller ones as well. They're also great, by the way, if you want to add a little light to your backdrop. You can put them into a shelf unit or off in the distance, and they add a bit of just what's called a kicker to your light as well. But for travel, they're fantastic, and they're just standard. You can get rechargeable batteries, but what's in here are just the standard AA batteries. There's about 6 or 8 of them in this, and I have 2 of these, so I would literally have one to my left, one to my right on both sides, and off you go. You're ready to go. That's that. Oh yeah, the other couple of other things to mention on phones which are useful. So you can get just little holders for your phone and put it up. You have your lights. The microphone, if you're this close to your phone, microphones on the phone are really, really good. You don't need external mics. Now you can get these, where did I put them? The little lavalier mics, these little short little mics that plug in. So that can go on your lapel and clip in, and that goes into the iPhone. That works well. These work well as well, the wireless mics. However, if you're close, the microphone in your iPhone or your Android phone are actually quite good. If I'm going to go outdoors, what I use one of these. It's a stabilizer, so I can use this portrait or horizontal. And that just, as you're walking along, it keeps it steady.
What is that one called?
This is called an DJI Osmo, OSMO. And it is, DJI Osmo. And it's really good because you can hold you can hold your camera either in portrait if you're doing, say, an Instagram, or horizontally if you're going to put it up on LinkedIn or YouTube. And it really keeps it steady. And the other thing is with the software that comes with it is you can select your face. It's a little square on your face. So when you move around, it keeps you dead center, which is a nice little feature as well. But it's just the convenience of not having kind of jittery video if you're going to walk around or hand hold it for a while. You can do this for a short video, but after a while, your hand will begin to shake. I would always recommend, and this is $120. It's not expensive at all for video. I'd certainly recommend one of those. You'll have great fun with them as well for private use. So that's it in terms of using your phone. I certainly wouldn't discount it because of the value of the authenticity that comes with something that's less produced. What I like about the phone is I can record, edit, and post a video to any platform with this. I don't need anything else. And I've done that a few times as well. Interesting, just as a kind of an added bonus, I've done this a few times as well, where I'll have a conversation with a prospect, and an hour, 2 hours later, either something will pop into my head, but I want to get back to them. And I'll take out my phone, I'll say, hey, Ross, listen, good to talk to you earlier. Just a few thoughts on our conversation. And I'll share with them some insights, thoughts, next steps, whatever, on the video. And the feedback I've had on that, just doing something like that, is extraordinary. People have said, Paul, we love it. It got our attention because it's different. Paul, we love it because we got a sense of your style. Whereas you don't get that when you can follow up with an email. So, and that's, by the way, where I would put the DJI Osmo on something like that, is because you can walk it. You can control it. You can start your video here, stop it, move it around, etc. This gives you a lot more control than just holding it. Although you can do that if you want. These phones now are much more stabilized than they used to be a few years ago. That's for sure.
So Paul, if I understand you correctly, so you make the video. Now from that video, do you upload it into a software that you can edit and do what you're saying, or is there a particular software where you're making the video?
Okay, so if I'm using the phone, yeah, I have editing software in there. Now the editing software on the phone is very simple. It just means that when I start, there's usually a couple of seconds before I speak, and then when I turn it off, I don't want this. So it's usually just kind of cutting off the tail of the top and tail it. Very little else I would do in this. In my laptop, if I'm doing a green screen video, for example, yeah, there's a bit more. I may have made a few mistakes that I need to edit out. I certainly need to take the green backdrop out and put a different screen in. Maybe I need to just touch up on the audio a little bit. It's nothing terribly, it's just time consuming. But I would spend an hour on a 4 or 5 minute video that I was going to put out. I use my, not Rian now, but my other son to do. He does those editing videos for me now. He charges me 25 quid for each video. Well worth it. I don't have to bother with it. If it was just kind of a quick thought to a prospect when I'm traveling, that's different. That's just in my phone. I keep that really simple. But if I'm putting it out on LinkedIn as a professionally produced studio video, the 25 quid for just to edit it, then, I mean, I do, but for anybody who doesn't want to get involved or buy software or doesn't want to have to go through the learning curve of learning how to use it, just go on Fiverr, or you're quite welcome to use my editor. More than happy to do it. He does a good job, 25 quid. So
So I guess my last question for that is, how do you send it over to them? You know, to your prospect, they make that video on a voice note and you send it.
Dropbox. So when I,
Oh,
let's
Dropbox.
say I was recording this video, I just take it off my card, I put it in Dropbox, and I send him a note and say, video ready for you. And then he puts it into a different Dropbox folder when it's ready, and then it's posted. He actually will post it for me on LinkedIn occasionally as well. So, yeah. So that's the formal bit over in terms of the detail. Go ahead.
Did you say if it's just an observation, an insight that you're sending to a prospect or a client, are you also using Dropbox or just attaching that to an email?
No, I would put it up on Vimeo and then just send them the link to Vimeo. So I would send them an email saying just some thoughts on our conversation earlier, and then a link on Vimeo. Now, what you can do as well, by the way, you can use LinkedIn. If you're connected on LinkedIn, and go straight into LinkedIn and record a video, and it pops up in their LinkedIn feed as a video. So that's another way of doing that. I think, Rian, you've done a webinar on this as well. I mean, we have, if you're interested in that, let me know. Between myself and Rian, I know we have a recorded session somewhere on how to use LinkedIn to send somebody a one-to-one video on a kind of a quick thoughts type thing.
Yeah,
or for prospecting.
Audio, just audio, straight audio or video. I've tried that a couple times.
Yeah, the video is really good. It just gets people's attention. It's different. And a lot of people don't use it. I did a little poll once on a video I did on how to do this. And I had about 100 people online. It was external people. And I asked why people don't use LinkedIn video, and most people are just uncomfortable on camera. It's as simple as that. So you're always going to have that advantage if you're comfortable to put a video on camera. It just stands out. It's better than an email. It's better than a voicemail. Just always going to be better. That's it. So any questions, folks? Because that is I didn't prepare anything else that I wanted to share with you. I'm looking around my table. Oh, sorry. One thing I was going to share with you. This, if you're using your iPhone externally, as I said, the microphone on it is quite good, but if it's windy, it's a killer. And this is a really good quality microphone. It's a Shure microphone, and it just plugs into the bottom of the phone like that, and you get really, really good quality audio if you're using your iPhone for video. So I would certainly recommend that, and that can be turned this way, or it could be turned that way if you were interviewing somebody. It's also, look at this, see this? It's directional. So if you were interviewing somebody for a podcast or you had some notes, it operates like a Zoom microphone as well. It's really good. I would certainly recommend one of those if you're going to get into that. I think that's it. I don't have anything else on my table, so yeah. There we go. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this up unless there's specific questions. I'll stay back and leave the recording running, but I'll just do a quick check on who's left. And if there's no specific questions, we'll wrap it up. If there are questions, let's deal with them now. But I'm not presenting anymore. I've closed the keynote.
Great. That's well a lot more than I needed. Thank you, Paul and Rian. Thank you both.
You're welcome. All right, listen. Take care. Cheers, Francesco.
Cheers.
Anybody else? Any questions? Are we done? Just sign off, guys, so I'll know there's nobody left. If you're left, then I'll know you have questions, or either that, or you've left the camera running and you've disappeared off somewhere.
Hey, Paul, what was that mic again? That little boom mic you showed me just now.
This one is it's a Shure. I don't know what exactly the model is, but Shure, S-H-U-R-E. And if you look up Shure iPhone, there are versions of this that are also for Android phones. There's a lot more for Android phones because obviously with the Lightning connector, it's specific to Apple. That's what I use. But yeah, sure.
Okay.
Very
thanks a lot.
good.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really enjoyed it, Paul. Rian, thanks a lot. We'll chat soon.
Very welcome.
Okay.